everyone. Welcome into the Bet On C2C Podcast. Welcome into episode 3. We are in the week 1 of 2022 season. So I am very, very excited. And today I bring on a very special guest. Of course, you have our favorite co-host, the man with the best hair in the CFF game, Mr. Chris K. Chris, how's it going there, Mr. Baseball Bat Swinging Guy?
It's good. It's good. We got first world problems going on over here, but we're good. I'm excited. Yes. This is like, I called this in my article for Saturday. I called this Hell Week. Week 0 was great. We had 6 months to prep for it, write for it. If you're a content guy like Laub over here. But then all of a sudden we hit Sunday and it's like you wake up and you have Thursday, you have Friday, you have Saturday, you have late Saturday. You got to create what you want to do. And then it just becomes just a hell week. But it's all with great amazingness because you get 3 essentially main slates in 1 week, which you will never get. And if you know what you're talking about, or if you've done the research, you get an amazing edge on this week. So I'm excited for this week for sure.
Yeah, this is where, and we'll introduce our guest in just a second, but this is where, the rubber meets the road. This is where you can pretty much distinguish yourself, especially in DFS. And we'll talk about that, how you have so many options, so many stacks you could do, so many players. Week 0 was just a taste. And some of us, had some success. Some of us, saw some heartache, but, we learned what we learned. At least we got a free week away from having to set our CFF lineups, which is happening this week. So we're adding that on top of the DFS stuff that we're playing. And that brings us to, like you just heard, they call him Laub City on the BTR pod. Of course, I call him the Gridiron Scholar. He is the man, the myth, and the legend. He is Mr. John Laub. You can find him at Twitter at Gridiron Scholar 91. John, welcome to the Bet On C2C Podcast, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm fired up. Last weekend, I spent about 8 straight hours in my lounge chair watching football. I'm afraid that I might double that, which isn't good for my health. I should be getting up and moving around, but it's hard from Thursday to Saturday night not to watch football.
I'm so excited that we're getting a Monday night game to replace Monday night football. Yeah. That's super cool.
Hey, I think the NCAA, the NFL gave them a window, man. This is like you get all day Saturday. People are jonesing for football. Then you come back with Sunday. You come back with Monday. No NFL in the way. It is the perfect week for college football.
Amen. Amen.
Amen to that. All right, so before we get started, let's do a little homework first. We want to say, hey, week 1 brings the fun. That's the name of the episode. So we got a couple guys on the process there. We got guys like Braylon Allen. I know John's a big fan of Mr. Braylon Allen. We got our guy right down the street where I live, Mr. Devin Leary there at NC State. He's going to get his start there. Very highly touted quarterback. Xavier Worthy, now wide receiver 1 with Mr. Quinn Ewers at the helm and his flowing goal and the mullet. So you're going to see some good players and some good games happening this week. And it all starts Thursday night. And, of course, you can find us all at capestocanton.com. Of course, you have the articles, tools, and guides, so much, much more. I think if you were there on Twitter, you saw the introduction today. For $29.99, you're going to get that NIL pass for DFS and betting contests. So go check that out. That is cheaper than all the other, guides. That's cheaper than all the other subscriptions that you have. That's where you're going to find content like Chris and Ethan and have theirs as well. Shout out to Ethan. He and his family are recovering from COVID, so we want to wish them well. You should see Ethan bright and shining back here next week, but send out prayers and well wishes to Ethan and his family. Get well soon, brother. We do miss you. But definitely go check out capestocanton.com where you can find anything and everything that we have to do, including this podcast and so much more. Of course, want to give a shout out to our buddy Nicholas Ian Allen there at CFB Winning Edge. You can check out his Patreon. It's as cheap as $5. He helps us out a lot when it comes to depth charts, things like projections and things like that. He does help me out a lot when it comes to overall FBS rankings of different teams. So that's where when you're trying to put together a lineup or a DFS one, if you're a guy like me that doesn't like to do optimization as much as my buddy down there, Mr. Chris K, you can find some mismatches there. So check out his website as well.
I'm going to throw it in here. That guy is insane with his stats. That guy's insane.
Oh, yeah.
Austin from C2C was like, hey, where can I find sacks allowed last year? And I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, Nick.
Yeah,
from Winning Edge, 100%. And then I'm like, you know what? Like, that guy could give you brothers, sisters, mothers, like, passing attempts per game. Like, he can give you anything. Like, that guy is insane with his stats. So, if you, like, legitimately, you should totally consider it. If you're deep into this stuff, you should 100% consider Nick for winning edge. I can't vouch for it enough.
And if you're, just give up a cup of coffee a month, send it his way. It's worth it. If anything, just to be like, who is this wide receiver 3 that I'm trying to figure out? I'll just go check out that spreadsheet. Oh, there it is. And actually, if someone gets injured, if there's a report going on, if he finds a depth chart situation, he has it fixed within hours. So, I mean, it's like in depth into the thing. So definitely go check him out as well. Like I said, patreon.com/CFB winning edge. And of course, guys, we're going to start off the episode with Campus Picks. Of course, that is presented by PrizePicks. We're going to get started there as well. And of course, before you do that, hey, we have the promo code C2C. If you go enter that code, you get a matching deposit up to $100. So please go check it out. Like I said, download the app and put in that code C2C. And like I said, you get that matching deposit up to $100. I think it's worth your while. Didn't do so hot in week 0, but that's okay. We're going to make the comeback this week in week 1, and we got some good selections for you as well. All right, so we're going to start it off. I'm not going to go 5 for 5, guys. One of my picks, Johnny Ford, didn't even make the field, or so apparently he might have. I don't know. There's some controversy with some of this stuff going on. So, but I decided to go with the 2. And my choices were 2 running backs. I wanted to go safe. And so here's where my thinking is. Kayvon Lee, right? He's 57.5. with projected rushing yards. But people, I don't think PrizePicks understands that they have an all-star freshman in Nicholas Singleton that I think is going to eat into this immediately. And I'm going to think it is in game 1. So for me, I don't think Kayvon Lee is going to actually take over this one. So I'm going to take the less. And then, of course, Dominic Richardson, starting running back, Oklahoma State. I think we both have seen where Oklahoma State has put up some amazing running backs, right? So I think he's going to get 1 touchdown pretty easily in this game, especially against Central Michigan. One of my MAC favorites to watch, but in this situation, it's definitely a mismatch. So I'm going to take Richardson. And it looks like, Kay, you got Richardson on another prop as well. So you're in on that. So talk to me about Richardson and then your 2 choices as well.
I mean, I think that's an obvious one, right? And it's so obvious. And this is, again, we talked about it for probably 2 weeks straight here on this podcast. You got to pay attention early and often, because DraftKings, I believe they released the line at 1.5 touchdowns. And once PrizePicks saw it, they took it off. So you can't actually get this line anymore, this 0.5 rushing touchdowns, because that's pretty much, excuse me, that's a great play right there. And the same with the fantasy score. If you look at Dominic Richardson right now at 17.5, do I like it? Yeah, I'd bet it. It's not as great as it was on Monday or Tuesday, Monday. But that's how quick it changes. So big Richardson fan against CMU, Central Michigan. And I love a lot of Oklahoma State plays. I'm big on Bray. So I like his on over in terms of receiving yards. I like, conversely, Brendan Presley with fantasy score going under. I think they're going to just run it in the ground. I think Bray is going to get his, and then I think the rest of the guys are just going to be good games, nothing crazy. I mean, Presley will have to score a touchdown to even start the conversation at 16 fantasy points there. And then as I was thinking about this play with Lou Nichols, I mean, he's a big guy in terms of receiving yards and receiving catches, just in terms of receptions in general, right? I think I tallied up 7 or 8 games of 3 or more receptions. And in the 2 games he faced basically major opponents, I think it was LSU, and I could look at the notes, and this is why we do the notes, but I'm not used to this. Who did they play in the other one? Missouri. He had 4 catches, right? So to me, Central Michigan lost a lot of receiving talent. Why not check it down, right? That feels like an easy one. So 3 receptions feels very good for me on that one. So I'm pretty excited about this throwaway prop here.
John, before we move on to your picks, what are your thoughts on some of these selections? What are you thinking?
I like the Kayvon Lee a lot, but anyone who's heard me throughout the summer, I'm a big Nicholas Singleton fan.
That you are.
I think these kids who are top shelf prospects, it's not 1998. They're not sitting on the bench. When you have Trevion Henderson last year, Braylon Allen, but it did take him 4 weeks to ascend to the top of the depth chart. We just saw it with Hampton at North Carolina and Petaway last week. If Penn State wants to even be competitive in the Big Ten, Nicholas Singleton is going to have to be a guy. He's going to have to be a man. We've seen Kayvon Lee. He's not good. Let's just stop pretending. Like, talent matters, right? Like, I get it that he's been around, but he's just been around and shown that he's bad. Like, he's not good. So maybe he opens up and gets the obligatory 3 carries on the opening drive. And then it's Singleton's game. And this is a game you got to beat Purdue. I mean, I'm really excited about Penn State Purdue. You can't go down 0-1. I mean, look at Nebraska. It's a disaster right now, right? They're already down 0-1 to Northwestern. I love the Kayvon Lee. I think it's amazing. When I saw you put up the Dominic Richardson, I immediately said, how is that possible? And Kay just told us. Even someone at PrizePicks said, wait a second, time out. We got, because it just seemed too good to be true. And you took on the Lou Nichols, right, Kay? What did you take exactly? What is the under on that one?
I took over 2.5 receptions. So I'm just looking at checkdowns.
Yes, the game script tells us they should lose that game, right? And he's their best player. Check downs to him in the third quarter. I love that one also. I'm just going to digress for 1 second because I've been wanting to say this all for 2 days. Everyone's talking about Evan Holt and Cam Porter. And you know what? Their perspective, are they good? Let me tell you something. It doesn't matter. They're running behind Pete Skoronski. Did anyone watch the Northwestern offensive line, folks? Pete Skoronski is a top 10 pick in the NFL. I don't give a crap who is running behind Pete Skoronski. He blew Nebraska's defensive line out of the goddamn water. There were holes that were so goddamn big. Anyone can run through it. So as long as this Northwestern offensive line can dominate the front four, forget it. Play Evan Hull and Cam Porter. Don't worry if they're good. It doesn't matter. Pete Skoronski and the offensive line. Did you watch the game? The man is the number 2 ranked offensive tackle. As I'm watching the game, he just slowly began to pancake Nebraska's offensive lineman or defensive lineman, and no one's talking about it. The man was dominant. And hell, Ryan Alinsky threw for over 300. Jesus, he had all the time in the world.
Laub, I got to ask you.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is a self-plug here, and I'll be quick, Brandon. I'm sorry. Did you watch or listen to the most recent Burning the Red Shirt podcast?
I did so I listened like for 15 minutes driving into work, but I haven't finished it yet.
No stress. The first thing I think of is you're that coach that motivates.
Oh.
I walked out of this thinking I'm rushing for 75 yards against Purdue. Like, I have that in the bag. Like, throw me in PrizePicks and hit my over because I'm hitting that. Don't even worry about it after that conversation.
I'll go play offensive line. Heck, man, I was ready to go. Let's ride.
My left tackle. I'm going to rush it for 75 after that. That's amazing.
I mean, that's the only thing, and I know we have 130 teams to cover. It's the only, it's hard to cover offensive lines with 130 with so many skilled position players. But sometimes you just see dominant offensive lines and you're like, hey, man, I don't care who's running behind that line. Give me the running back. So no one talked about the kid, and I thought Peter Skoronski played out of his mind against Nebraska.
He was definitely a man amongst boys, and I feel like he had a ton of Guinness before he started, so I think he was raring to go for sure. So Dublin will do that to you. I
think Barnabas from C2C did like a little Saturday morning.
He did, yeah. He talked about him a little bit.
Minute and a half, yeah. By the way, like, I thought that was awesome. Like, that's not my realm at all. Like, I am just straight, like, I don't even know what these guys look like. I don't know anything about them. I just know, like, stats. I'm going to do this. I'm like the data nerd. Whatever. And then all of a sudden, Barnabas comes in here with all these crazy advanced level stats. I'm like, damn, I got to be watching this stuff on Saturday morning more often because that was awesome.
Yeah, shout out to the tailgate and then College Fantasy Tonight. There's some really good segments. Barnabas was on both, and he's laying out IDP players. He's laying out offensive line. I mean, the unspoken heroes of our CFF glory. Yeah. He's laying it out there for people, and he's our draft specialist. So I think he's definitely worth the listen, and he's always insightful. A guy that knows Maryland well. So if you want to know about wide receivers, a little Tua, he's your guy for sure. So definitely been checking him out. All right. Laub, you are the guest of the show. I made you a very fancy slide here. So tell us about your 4 picks for the PrizePicks from the Gridiron Scholar himself.
So it's very unworthy. I love the slide. It's incredible. Thank you very much. I'm not worth all that beautiful color and work, but I appreciate it. It's amazing. So I am so mad still. I lost my 3 by 1.5 rushing yards by Chris Reynolds. I might have been the only person staying up to Charlotte, getting blown out. And I'm like, Chris Reynolds, I just need a 6-yard scramble, please. I had the 9.5 over under, and he had 8 yards rushing. And I hit my other 2, and I was so mad.
And he busted his shoulder.
Oh, my God, just 1.5 yards. But isn't that the adrenaline rush? Isn't that like I'm watching Charlotte FAU for no other reason than Chris Reynolds, right? So I got 4, and you can choose all 3. You can put them in however you want, everyone. But when I was looking through, 4 stood out to me. First one, how the hell is Tanner Morgan going to throw for 210 yards in this game? They're going to run for 300, and then they're going to pull Tanner Morgan. I mean, maybe you get it. Maybe he's Ryan Helinski. I could be wrong, and he might pull the Ryan Helinski. But you got to get Mohammed and Potts. You got to run this football. You're playing New Mexico State. They're coming off a game. New Mexico State played on Saturday. First of all, hello, New Mexico State athletic director. You're a moron. You are scheduling a game for week 0 and then traveling to Minnesota for a Thursday night game? Like, what is your problem? But that's a different story for another day. They are just going to physically beat the living crap out of New Mexico. Now, Tanner Morgan might have 120 in the first half, and you might be shaking in your boots. They're going to run the ball in the second half. So I love the under on Tanner Morgan against New Mexico this week. 2, you talked about Dominic Richardson. Emory Jones had 4 rushing touchdowns for Florida. We obviously saw that Florida had no idea last year how to use Damian Pierce, who now looks like he's a starter in the NFL. They were so messed up. And they had Anthony Richardson and Emory Jones in and out. He had over 750 yards rushing, folks. They're playing Northern Arizona. You don't think they got a bootleg audible in the package at the goal line with Emory Jones? He might pop off a 40-yard touchdown against Northern Arizona. We got a half a touchdown. I'm taking the over all day long. Emory Jones might have 100 yards rushing in this game. Love it. Kay talked about game script with Lou Nichols. I'm going to talk game script with Carson Steele. Old man memory. I think Tennessee's like a 38-point favorite against Ball State. It's crazy. When Ball State's down 28-0, are you really playing Carson Steele and running the football on 1st and 10 on the road in Tennessee? 59.5? I mean, how is Ball State going to block Tennessee's front 7? And then the game strip is just going to go away from them so quickly. I just don't see Steele getting 15 carries in this game. Now, he could bust one off, but I'll take under on the 59.5 for the game script here. And Jaden Bray. It looks like PrizePicks, DraftKings, everyone seems to think Brennan Presley is the number 1 guy, Oklahoma State. Watch the film. I think Jaden Bray's better. I think he's more physical. I think he's the next possible big-time Cowboy wide receiver. I'm looking at 50.5 over. 50.5, he might get a 55-yard touchdown. We've seen Oklahoma State throw the ball deep for years. It's a great matchup against Central Michigan. I love Jaden Bray. Take the over on 50.5.
Yeah, I got a lot on Jaden Bray. And I got, what was crazy was I jumped on it at 13.5 fantasy points.
Nice.
And now it's down to 12.
What?
I'm like, what? So, you could do a little bit of maybe if you're going to do 3 or 4 bets on Bray, 3 or 4 picks on Bray, you do half and half, right? Because, if he doesn't get the touchdown, then he could certainly still get the receiving yards. That's crazy number. I think you're 100% right, Laub. Like, I think people think Presley, and I think people believe, or the books or whatever believe, Braden Johnson is going to be enough of a guy to be, like, to cut into it. But, like, Jaden Bray has been, like, the talk of the town from local beat guys. That feels like an easy one. I'm so nervous because it feels so easy.
But look at his physical size. He looks like that Blackman, right? The Dez.
He looks like Tylan Wallace, Dez. All those guys.
He looks
the prototypical.
Like, watch him play football. He's going to beat people up one-on-one about 25 yards down the field. I mean, and they're just going to throw it up to him.
Yep. Agreed.
Yes. I think Carson Steele might. I don't know. Is he a rushing or other than rushing? Is he a reception guy like Lou Nichols, or is he okay or slippery hands? Well, how's
good.
Steele?
He's pretty good with the passing game, but
yes,
that number is just straight rushing yards.
Right.
Which
I wouldn't touch that one.
I think Laub is just playing the old narratives, game script, and I mean he's never. I don't like as far as I remember in terms of last year. Like he wasn't like some explosive running back. So you're not the thing I would worry about with like unders on like the Braden Johnson. Like I think Braden Johnson, the Oklahoma State receiver, his number is really pretty bad. But it's like 50 or 49 receiving yards, something like that on some sites. And I'm just concerned about it because he is a big play receiver. Like he is going to go for like 2 catches for 90 yards, or he's going to go like 1 catch, 9 yards. And that's not Carson Steele. Carson Steele is like your kind of ho-hum 3, 4, 5 yards of carry, and then the game script gets bad, and then he's done. So I like that one as well. I would agree with Emory Jones. I'd agree with Tanner Morgan. I would say Emory Jones is probably my 3-4 with Carson Steele. I really like that Tanner Morgan under. I think you're dead on with that one.
Yep. They're going to run the football.
They'll be so far out ahead that it won't even matter. They'll be so far out ahead of that matchup that why would they even throw it?
At this point, why? Especially with Mo back, Potts. You got our boy, the freshman Zach Evans, who says everyone's healthy and looking good in camp. So, I'm going to bank on Minnesota just running like crazy. I think Ball State can ball out when given the opportunity. I know they have a brand new quarterback, and we'll talk about it here in the next segment. But they got some options, especially with Jackson there. Jay Sean, I'm really a fan of his at wide receiver. There's some opportunity, and Tennessee isn't the best at defending the pass, so we might see a little bit of a shootout before it gets well out of hand with Tennessee just going ham.
Brandon, your question. I looked up Carson Steele, 12 receptions last year.
Okay,
He's
so
not a
lot.
big-time pass. I wouldn't rank him, an elite pass catcher. Now, against Penn State last year, September 11th, 7 carries, 18 yards.
Oof.
Game script got away from a 44 to 13. We are looking at a very similar game against Tennessee. So that's just why it's game script. I like Carson Steele as a fantasy player, but this is not the matchup that,
Well, we might have to change things, but first, before we do that, let's bank on them, boys. So this is where we talk about DraftKings and FanDuel and some lineups that you have. Like I said, before we get started, I want you guys to remember to bet responsibly. Like I said, don't sell the farm. These are just options for you. You don't have to, use them as Bible, and you don't have to, use the exact ones. Just take what you have and the stuff that we give you. Just decide if that's going to be for you or not. So definitely check that out. But we're going to start with DraftKings. And let's go with Chris, since he's the guru specialist and the spreadsheet king here. I know he's been spending a lot of time with the numbers. So tell me, this general lineup that you set and some other options that you're thinking here. I believe this is Thursday's lineup. We'll have a couple Saturdays we'll talk about. So
this is Thursday right here. Shockingly, and my dog, by the way, Beamer, named after the old
Shane
Frank. Now, Shane, get out of here. Respect is Shane. Respect is Shane, but all respects go to Frank here, okay? He's quieted down, thank you. Dominic Richardson, number 1. What a great play there. We've talked about it. Jaden Bray, same thing. And then past that, right, it goes who are we doing at quarterback, right? Aiden O'Connell, I think, is a great option. That's super cheap. I mean, there's the Penn State matchup is going to be tough, right? It's not going to be easy pickings, and that team total is not going to be crazy. But I mean, he's going to hit 300 passing yards. That's going to be like almost a given. Like that feels really good, which means you get the bonus on DraftKings. So on FanDuel, wouldn't necessarily lean that way. And I paired him up with Brock Thompson, but really it's like, what Purdue receiver do you like? Do you like Tyrone Tracy? Do you like him? You're going to go maybe, I don't even know, but I got to imagine like an Elijah Canyon is super cheap, or Charlie Jones is super cheap. Whoever you think is that receiver one, you have a lot of mid to low priced options there. Plumlee, that like I am trying to stop like his projection, but I can't. I'm like putting him at like 85% of snaps, and I'm still getting like 27, 20 fantasy points, which is like very high. Very like for reference, CJ Stroud projects at like 24.5 points per my model against Notre Dame, and they're 2 touchdown favorites. You're looking at like 40 points. So like Plumlee being at 27, 28 is huge. And then from there, it's just filling in, right? Trey Potts, that goes with that game script that Laub was talking about with Minnesota. I think Mo Ibrahim, I think he's going to be awesome. I worry long-term and like season-long type stuff for his Achilles, like because that's just proven to not be a good situation. But Minnesota wants to run the ball. So like worst case scenario, Potts is still going to get 14, 15 carries. That matchup's going to be awesome for him. And then lastly, I think A.T. Perry, right? Like Wake Forest, main receiver. I think Griffiths is probably going to be a little bit maybe more random run heavy than Sam Hartman, but ultimately I don't have any data behind it, but I never do, so who cares? Whatever. When a backup comes into play, they throw to the receiver one maybe a little bit more often. A.T. Perry's the number one. It's not even close. Like this is a situation where like it's not even close. That's the number one. You could debate the 2 and the 3 and the 4 at that Wake Forest offense. I mean, Perry is clear night and day. I mean, in any matchup, he's getting 29% of targets, which is insane in the Wake Forest offense. So and then Ontario Brown, that's just nuts. Like his $5K price tag as a starting RB1 or even RB2, I'd have been cool with it against Eastern Illinois is just insane. So that's where my head was at right there.
I got you. I'll start with same with NIE. I'll go mine, and then we'll have John do his Fantastic Four lineup, making an appearance on the Bet On C2C podcast. Very excited about the Fantastic Four returning. So I decided to zag when people are zigging. A lot of people, and I did see the depth chart. Ontario Brown, he has the distinguished RB. There's no or, but I'm not scared of the or, and I just want to point that out for anyone listening and stuff like that. If you've seen what Harrison Whaley was able to do before his injury. Now he's at 100%. He was looking okay in camp. He is the pass catching back. He is a do-it-all back. And I think, for an extra, I believe, 1,000 there to zag when people are going to take Brown, I'm looking for a lower percentage. So I'm looking to snag maybe Whaley, who can probably still see some time there in the, especially against, an FCS team. I think that's going to be perfectly okay. And you're going to see a lot of both Brown and Whaley in the process. I know they like their third running back too, so he might get some play there as well. But I'm not afraid of the situation, so I was going Whaley. So for me, I wanted to find something where you can distinguish yourself out of the rest of the pack. So there's a lot bigger of a slate, and so you're looking to have a stack where it's a little bit different and out of the norm, and I also want to be able to pair 2 of them. So I looked at Ball State because, they're going up against Tennessee that doesn't unless they've gotten better from what I've seen in camp defensively, especially their corners and stuff like that, they're not as good as, defending the pass. We saw the Ole Miss game. There's a few others where they were just genuine shootouts. And I get it that we're seeing a G5 versus an SEC team, but I really, really like Jayshon Jackson, especially for the 4,600. I think it's a great cheap play as well. I think if you pair him with his quarterback with Paddock, who's now starting, a lot of people are not aware of Paddock, so I think he's going to be low owned. And, of course, Carson Steele, it sounds like he's not the receiving guy that I thought he was. So this would be one where I probably would scratch this out and not do the 3 stack and just take the 2. So I probably would, if people are listening, I'd probably say drop Haley off or Whaley off, take Brown, gain some value, and then take a different running back than Steele. But I still think it's a decent stack. My favorite and the sleeper, of course, is Mr. Luther Burden III out of Missouri, the top freshman coming in. Everything from spring game and everything under the sun. The guy's getting played like he's Deebo Samuel, and I need to, say that as well. So I do not trust the Missouri running back squad. Me and Chris were talking in the Slack channel earlier, and it's just one of those things. I'm just staying far away from it. But I think Burden's going to be used in running back, wide receiver, slot. He might line up as tight end. The dude's an absolute monster. So for me, I'm taking Burden as my sleeper. And for 6,700, the people are not on them, and they're playing Louisiana Tech. So why not have a good first coming out game, just like Hampton and Petaway? I think Burden's going to be the reason why he's the top wide receiver coming out of this freshman class as well. See, Tillman, of course, he's just chalk. I just want something consistent. I wanted Hooker's top guy, so he's there. But I wanted to pair JT Daniels and his top receiver coming to West Virginia, Bryson Ford-Wheaton. I think that's a great pairing, and it's under 13,000. So, I mean, you can definitely gain some money and traction there as well. What are you guys' thoughts on the stack? Do you think it's a little risque? Do you think it stands out against other opponents? Do you think it's too weak to take home any money? What are your thoughts?
I would ask one question first. Would you play this in a cash game or a GPP? Because I have clear thoughts on where I would put this type of lineup.
So I would probably still finagle it because this isn't probably the main one that I'm playing in GPP, but this would be one that I was thinking more GPP.
Okay, I agree. It seems
it's
like
not it's not enough chalky to be cash. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like it for GPP because what you're banking on is incredibly low ownership of the Cardinals. And you're saying if somehow the Cardinals, I looked it up, Tennessee's a 35-point favorite. But what you're saying, if somehow the Cardinals can stay in, keep this game within 2 or 3 touchdowns, then I'm willing to think that the Cardinals scored 3 to 4 touchdowns. So I like that there's not going to be a lot of people on the Cardinals stack in the GPP. So I do like that. And I like the fact, I think Tillman will be heavily owned, but you got to have someone on the Tennessee side in a GPP going against the Ball State. So I like that. And I think Daniels is one of the guys I'm looking at, and I'm debating. I got to think about my projections. I think Daniels is a sneaky guy in cash games, or in a GPP because I like that with Brandon Ford-Wheaton.
Yeah, I was going to say kind of the same thing, right? Like I think, Tillman's huge, right? Like he could have a huge game. And if you really believe Ball State can stay in it, like I could see Tillman go 8 for 220 and 4 touchdowns. Like that's like a Tuesday for that type of for that type of matchup, right? So, I don't believe that the Ball State 35-point spread is as same as this, Plum Lee 35-point spread or whatever it is in his matchup against South Carolina State. So, like, I don't see South Carolina State hanging with UCF. Like, I believe that 100%. But, like, there's some sort of world where Ball State keeps it close enough, maybe at least for the first 3 quarters, where you have to see a ton of Tennessee first-teamers. So I don't have a problem with that. My only problem is Carson Steele is probably not the best, and you kind of mentioned it, right? Like, for passing game, but just in general, right? Like, their team total is just not necessarily high enough for me to want that, especially with options out there. You want to play it or consider a great GPP type lineup, put Antonio Brown with Whaley and just go rock both of them, because think about the uniqueness of that lineup. I love Whaley. I just said, hey, they named Brown RB1, but I would have rocked him at RB2. Same thing with Whaley. In that matchup, they're going to run it. They're going to pound it. They don't have a great passing game. Travion Rudolph, man, what a tough injury for him. And what that sucked, man. That you just hate hearing that, right? Like,
it was awful. So brutal.
He's such a good young talent. Like, you don't want to see that. They're going to lean on the run game in week 1. Maybe they don't in week 7, but they're going to in week 1. So I love both those options. I think both of them are underpriced. So I like those, and I like the West Virginia thing. It truly is based on, do you think West Virginia is going to be able to pass, right? Do you think JT Daniels is the JT Daniels that everybody hyped up at USC? They went to Georgia, then he caught that lull, and then he got hurt. Then it was weird because Stetson with the fro got it, and then Stetson gets a nice haircut, and JT never had a chance, right? So I don't know. I mean, I like the West Virginia stack there. That'll be low owned for sure. If you're in a tournament, you don't want to go super low owned everywhere, but I think those are very viable low owned options for sure.
Yeah, that's why I want to make sure I had Tillman for the chalk there. Just make sure you have the over. Okay, let's go into Mr. John Laub, your Fantastic Four, sir. Tell me about the four that you picked and why you decided to go with them.
So in general, I'm a cash game player. I dabble in GPP, but I don't put in like 3 or 4 GPP lineups. And I sometimes only do it when I feel like there's an edge somewheres. Like a West Virginia stack, I think is also interested in GPP this week. I think it's going to be overlooked. Graham Harrell's the offense coordinator, right? He's so they could throw the ball 45 times. So I like that as a contrarian type of play. And I don't think West Virginia has a running back that I'm interested in. Looking at the depth chart, I'm like, there's no one here. So I do think they're going to throw the ball crazy amounts. So I do cash game. And what I like to do is give viewers, readers, anyone who's looking at my stuff, hey, this is my core. I could go with this core, and then maybe I just build one lineup in it, and I put it in a $20 and a $10 cash game. Or maybe I want to do this with 2 or 3 other cores and spread it out in my cash game lineups. But how I approach a cash game in CFB, a little different than NFL. And I think Kay has been with me playing CFB for a real long time. And I learned this lesson the hard way. When you have a Melvin Gordon at Wisconsin, or you have a Derrick Henry at Alabama, you almost have to play them in cash games because they can hit 50-point ceilings any week. And I remember I got burnt one year. I'm like, Gordon can't go off again. Like it was like 2 straight games of over 40 points or something. And he smashed again. And that just destroys your cash game lineup. So I took Hooker here. He's the 3rd most expensive quarterback. And I don't love giving out top-end advice. But when I look at this slate, there's only 2 players who could get 50 points in my book. I could be wrong. It is Hooker and Tillman. That's it. You decide if you want to match it up with Tillman. That's up to you. But I think with Hooker, he could run for 2, throw for 3. I can't take the risk in a cash game that Tillman goes out there, with a 30-point floor, but he hits 45 because it's very hard to play catch up. So I'm going Hooker there. Then we talked about Jaden Bray. He's under 6,000. I was like, oh my, I think he's better than Presley. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe the coaching staff will target Presley more. I think he's better. I think he's the better option. We talked about it all night. I'm getting a stud wide receiver for under 6,000 in a nice, I think Central Michigan can keep it a little closer than Ball State against Tennessee. So let me go Jaden Bray there. Chris mentioned it. Brock Thompson. I mean, I looked at the salaries and what it really came to. If I look at the salaries of Purdue, Tracy's $5,700. Brock Thompson is $4,900. I'm saving $800. Both of them are going to play. Aiden O'Connell should throw for 300, right, in his sleep in this matchup. I mean, he should be good for 8 targets. I'll take 8 targets for under $5,000, and hopefully I get in the end zone and I get like 6 receptions or more. So I love Thompson there. And I always try to find, last week is it Aiden Robbins? The running back from UNLV. Yep. I had Aiden Robbins. Now, I got a little lucky. Game script went away. They took him out, but we got the 2 touchdowns. I wanted volume, but I ended up with 2 lucky touchdowns. So I ended up, I think it was like 16.5 points, something like that. But he was what, 3,400, 3,300? Like it was just so low. So I'm looking at this Mizzou team. And I said to myself, Mizzou's going to run the ball, I think. They're playing Louisiana Tech. Pete is not at the top of the depth chart. Like, I'm stunned, right? Completely blown away. I'll take the lowest price Mizzou back. I think he's a transfer from a lower level or something. He's not a kid that you probably never. I don't even know. It's Schrader, but what's his first name?
I think it's Cody.
Yeah, Cody Schrader. 3,200. What if he gets 12 carries in this game? They could blow out Louisiana. Hey, it's a huge risk, but I do tend to take those because I like one low price. I almost always take a guy under 3,500 in college, and sometimes it doesn't work. I've been burned, but a lot of times it enables me to build with the Cedric Tillman Hooker stack, or I can go Purdue. I mean, I love Plumlee. You can put Plumlee in this one in the super flex also. Like, there's a lot of good, actually, I think there's a lot of good quarterback options, more than you think on this slate. So I want the guaranteed high ceiling, potential high ceiling with Hooker, guaranteed floor. And then this lineup, if you look there, you have 27,200 or an average of 6,800 for your last four players. So you really have some options to build a strong team around it.
Yeah. By the way, I was talking, we did the Burning the Red Shirt podcast and we talked about this, but like I was talking on the side to some other buddies, and you know, if I told you right now today who was the best Missouri running back, it would be Nathaniel Pete.
It's not even close.
But I think what's happening is I think that he's banged up, like, or he's been hurt. I mean, like, there's no doubt about it. He's been hurt. Like, they have said it, that he's not been full contact. He's missed snaps. He's missed drills because of it. My thought is, and you see this rare, like in sparing, like depth charts randomly throughout, that guys that have been banged up don't get like the depth chart love, and then they'll pop up in week 2 or week 3 as the RB1. SMU guy, Kamar Wheaton's a really good example. I could see him being RB1 in week 3. But for now, they're good with Trey Siggers. And I think what's happening here is we're going to see Elijah Young. We're going to see Cody Schrader. But you don't need, like, right? Like, Missouri's RB1 is going to get like 50% of carries. But I'm not projecting that at all. Like, I'm projecting in this matchup because of blowout, because of the matchup. Like, you're looking at Schrader and Young, Elijah Young, who I think he's like in the mid-5, something like that in terms of DraftKings pricing.
Yes.
Like, I see both of them getting like 32, 33%. Guess what? That's like 12, 13 carries per what I'm looking at. And like, that's huge based on the implied total. Like, that's a no-brainer. Schrader, after like I created this lineup, sent it over to Brandon. We did our thing. And then like the more I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, this is like insane. Like, you have to do, especially in a cash game. That's a good chance worth taking.
Yes.
I would have loved to use Pete. Pete was like 6,700. If he was RB1 standing solo, I would have he would have been here, without a doubt. But
okay, if you told me that Pete was going to get 20 carries, which the lead running back at Mizzou should get, I'd be all in on it.
Plus a couple catches.
100%.
They're a 20-point home favorite. 20-point home favorite.
Yeah.
The lead back in Missouri would get 20 touches minimum.
Yeah.
So I'll just take the cheapest. And here's another thing. Do you need to beat Louisiana Tech with Nathaniel Pete? You can win this game without him.
Yep.
So play the other two guys. See if you have something.
It kind of sounds like they like the other two guys.
Yeah,
too. I'm promoting Pete, but like I think Schrader, from what Andrew Katz was telling me, was a D2 stud. I think he was like 2,100 rushing yards or maybe total yards in D2. Whoa. In the spring game, he just ran over dudes, but he said that it was like some potential walk-on or like second, third string defenses.
But he's also over 215 pounds.
He's a real running back. Like, this is your normal dude. Like, this, like, in terms of like random lower level transfers. So that's an exciting play. I'm really, really interested to see what his ownership is, because I could see him being 10%. I could see him being 50%. I have no idea. I have no idea what we're getting, but I think it's a great option for sure.
And then you have the wild card of Burden, who's a do-it-all guy. And so then, like, where does he get 10%? Because he can run, he can pass, he can throw. Is he going to be a guy that just a San Francisco 49er light? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is this Mizzou going to look like? So it's definitely interesting, man. Now that I'm hearing about Schrader in the FCS level, that is, you said D2, right? So what is that?
D2.
Oof.
So Burden's really interesting because I think we all saw in the spring game. They just hammered him. It was like literally nonstop. And the dude was there for like 2 months. And they're like, you're just going to take every pass that we throw. Just a heads up. I'm going to throw it out there. And like, okay, well, now it's been like 8 months. So I like Burden's price is somewhat aggressive, but I actually kind of like it in tournaments because I think it's going to shy away. I said this in my article last week with Chase Brown. I don't know if the ownership necessarily reflected it, but I thought the ownership for Chase Brown would be crazy high, generally speaking. And then I saw his price, and I was like, well, that's going to limit that a little bit. And I think we're going to see that especially with Burden. I think they're going to throw it to him a ton. That like 18 to 22 spread is perfect for fantasy because it's like we're going to just absolutely crush you. But we're not going to crush you that much. We're going to like let you stay around enough where everybody's got play. So that's what you're kind of looking for, you know? Like give me the 35-point spread with Tennessee over the 35-point spread with UCF against South Carolina State. I said that earlier. Like that stuff matters because you get like a little bit of the worst case scenario is like, well, they do, for lack of better words, wax that ass, but it takes a while or something, right? There's a little bit of chance that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm looking for Luther Burden on PrizePicks, and he doesn't have a receiving yards prop.
I just give it to him. I was scared. Yeah, they're scared because they don't know what he's capable of.
They don't know what to put.
They're going to find out real quick. All right, guys, let's move to FanDuel. And I know, John, feel free to hop in on these. I know you didn't give us any FanDuel, but feel free to.
Unfortunately, I just don't play on FanDuel, so that's why. But I can tell you who I like.
It's all good. A lot of this is similar, so I was able to take. And here's the thing about FanDuel: they are very smart about their pricing. I will say that their values, you're going to spend a little bit more, so you do have to be particular. Again, you also lose the flex. So just like Ethan was saying last week, they took away one of the flex spots, so it's not as large as DK. So and it's only 0.5 PPR. It's not a full point PPR. So you have to take those three factors into the situation here. So for me, I went ahead and like I said, this was before I did it. I would probably remove Steele and probably see if I could get another running back. But other than that, I was able to pair Paddock with Jackson. I was able to secure Hooker and Tillman, which I think is lights out. And of course, you're able to find Burden at the cheaper price. He is the play of the week at FanDuel at $5,500. FanDuel does not know who Luther Burden is. They're going to find out real quick, right? And then my boy Mo Ibrahim. He was the highest, but he's going to get the most volume. And against New Mexico State, I think he's going to be able to at least get close to what his value is as far as fantasy points per value. I think he's going to be right on par with that. We are going to see Trey Potts, and we're probably going to see the rookie or the freshman Zach Evans as well, just because it's New Mexico State. But Ibrahim's going to take the load, and we're going to see how that Achilles is doing. I think it's 100% and he's healed. It might take him a little bit to get going, maybe a quarter or so, but we're going to see Ibrahim do his thing. He was the leading rusher in CFF, I believe, the year before. I believe in the COVID season, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that right, John? I think.
Yes.
He's the leader. Okay. I think I don't know if he's there, but I think if we give 80%, Mo Ibrahim compared to what he was in 2020, I think he's going to be okay. So that was my call, Chris. It looks like you stacked up on OK State. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of quickly go back to your lineup, I mean, FanDuel's tough, man. FanDuel's tough. Their scoring is different than DraftKings, so if you're used to DraftKings, it really can provide some issues with the there's no bonuses, the half-point PPR. I do like the lineup. Mo Ibrahim is the 80 fantasy point potential type guy, not necessarily against New Mexico State, because I don't think New Mexico State has the offense to help that, but otherwise, I like the lineup. I mean, Luther Burden, I wish I would have seen that because I would have thrown him in mine over Brock Thompson or, fit him in somewhere because, with mine, I went with the Purdue stack. I mean, you got to stack. You have to stack, right? Like in my head, that's why I did that on DraftKings. I'm doing it again on FanDuel. I don't necessarily love it as much after seeing Luther Burden at that price. Like I'll find some other way to do this here.
I had to really scroll down to find him too. I was like, wait, where's Burden? I was like, oh, whoa, he's way down here. I was like, win of the week.
Yeah. So, and then we talked about Pete, right? Like that is under the assumption that he's healthy. I think we can all agree at this point, it's way too risky to do that. Right. So I would have taken him out at this point. Right. Curtis Steele, I don't know if I would fill him in with that necessarily, but it would be a good kind of bring back in a sense with the Tennessee guys that I have, Tillman and Hooker. I mean, Hooker's just insanely good. He's productive in all facets. He's great around the goal line. He can throw the 70-yard pass. Like those are the guys that you're going to get beat up by the Jordan Travises of the world where he plays a nobody and he doesn't do anything because they're just killing everybody. But like, that was such a tough match because that was so great, like in terms of potential upside there, but just didn't work out. I don't see it happening with Hendon Hooker. Like they're trying to push that man for Heisman. Like they're not letting that man not score a touchdown or two. Like that's going to happen. And then I think Jaden Bray, right? Like I think in terms of FanDuel, you need to look at big yards. You need to look at touchdowns in terms of receivers and with the running backs. And I don't think Jaden Bray is going to get your 12 catches. He's not your Nathaniel Dell that's going to go 10 for 110. He's your like 5 for 180. And it all counts the same. We all love each of them. So I love that there. And Dominic Richardson at 8,400 is criminal. Like that's like of all the guys listed there, I think I like Dominic Richardson at 8,400 the most. What do you think, Laub? Do you think which one of my players listed here is your favorite?
So when I used to play FanDuel and I was playing with the Derrick Henry years and the Melvin Gordon years, but I just play PPR now, everything, so I can double my research. So that's why I stay on DraftKings because I do NFL also. So I just in that mindset. But what I do remember is touchdown equity. And Dominic Richardson, we know the Oklahoma State back from Chuba Hubbard and all the players that they've had. At any time, you can get the 2 to 3 touchdown equity from their main back. Dominic Richardson is in that spot to smash. And look at the difference. You're talking Mo Ibrahim is 12,000. Dominic Richardson is 8,400. And I would argue they both could have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that is incredible savings because I think Potts will get in the game and the game script might go away from Mo, right? What if he has a huge first half? You play Potts in the second. So I'd much rather have Dominic Richardson there. I love it. And I did play passers with pass catchers. There is a risk, if O'Donnell doesn't throw a touchdown, which I don't expect, O'Connell. Right. Obviously, that hurt Brock Thompson. But O'Connell will throw 2 or 3 in my book. Well, let me have Brock Thompson. I love it. What if 2 touchdowns go for him, right? So the touchdown equity. So those are the guys I like. I'm always looking for pairings. The only thing I might do, I might take a receiver, maybe think about Penn State, but the problem is it's hard to decide which one you love, and I don't know the pricing. But I might want to come back with a Penn State wide receiver if that game blows out. I tend to think I'm doing my over-unders. I haven't finalized them. I tend to think that Penn State-Purdue game, I'm looking here, it's only 52.5. I don't know. I think that seems low to me. I haven't finalized the numbers, but you do have, and I don't love Sean Clifford, but he does have the potential to keep the game. If the game goes and O'Connell's throwing the football, Clifford can throw the football over the yard. He might look ugly. So that's the only thing I might do there.
I like that over. I think hey, he can look ugly, but he's going to hand it to Singleton, so who cares? I mean, I think it's a good call.
Washington, Tinsley, it's going to somebody.
Yeah, they got Tinsley in Washington. You know what I might do? I might take the cheaper Tinsley or Washington, whichever one's least expensive.
Surprisingly, it's Washington. FanDuel thinks that Tinsley is the one, which I'm gonna say yes because
the big home run hitter is Washington.
Washington is the home run hitter. Yes,
he's the home run hitter. If you got the 60-yard splash play, you'd be golden with, and he's less than Tinsley. Wow.
They have a third receiver too, right? With Keandre
they do.
Lambert
Smith, right?
Yeah,
Like, so that's a great, and that's more for Clifford's sake than it is for each of the receivers, right? Like, but that's a great reason to think either one, you bet the over, or two, maybe Clifford. I don't know what Clifford's pricing is, right? But like maybe Clifford's 7,800. Like, that's a lot of great receivers to help him out. He's a decent rusher, like he's a plotter.
He's okay.
He's
he's all right. So he can run it in.
It's a nice GPP play because I don't think people are going to be on Sean Clifford in Penn State.
I stared at him for a couple minutes. Yeah. I contemplated it for sure. I don't know. I don't know if I can trust Sean Clifford with both wide receivers. Maybe one. You just got to pick the one that you think is going to hit.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would go 2 and 2. I would go O'Connell with your favorite Purdue receiver, and then I'd go Clifford with your favorite Penn State receiver.
Right.
I think Laub is right though. Like, I think people are very stuck on what's the first thing you think of when you think of Penn State? To me, it's like great running backs, great defense.
Yes.
And I don't necessarily know that we're going to get that defense out of a typical Penn State. I'm a Virginia Tech guy. We stole your DC, Penn State fans. Sorry, not sorry. And
sorry.
whatever. I don't care. We don't play you guys this year, so I'm not even mad about it. So hopefully it translates here. But I think that's a good call. 52 feels really low for a college game in which Purdue is notorious for just being awesome offensively.
Yes.
Pretty bad defensively. That does feel pretty low.
I'm going to look more tomorrow before I make a decision. But, I like to filter.
You're already pegged in, man. You don't know it, but you've already been locked into it. Everybody's going to yell at you on Twitter if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, they're going straight for Laub. So I want to bring up before we end the FanDuel segment. So, we're talking about how maybe we won't play Pete now. We won't play Steele. What is your thoughts on Jabril Small and adding him to the stack? What are your thoughts there?
Dude, I love that in a GPP. If you want to really differentiate, Hooker and Tillman we know they're going to be massively owned. If you just take the risk that Hooker only runs 1 and throws 2, and what if Jabari Small scores 2, right? I mean, you talk about a pivot play. That's a nice pivot play. And his PrizePicks rushing number was crazy high. Let me see. I think it was near 100. Let me look again.
For Small?
Yeah.
85.5 on PrizePicks.
I don't know if I'm taking that. Maybe.
I mean,
I love him, man. He's a 5.
I'm just worried about injury for Small rusher. For me. Yeah, injury is what I worry the most because Small doesn't stay healthy all year. So that would be my only.
But it's the opening game. I'm okay.
True. It's weekend.
He hasn't had back-to-back 15 carry, 20 carry games against SEC in Ball State. I mean, that's what I love about DFS, right? We know, hey, anyone can get injured. We know that. But he appears to be healthy right now without a big workload.
Yeah, I wouldn't put all three together. I would say that.
I agree.
I do like that as I think people think about pivots as in well, this guy is 9,000 and that guy's 9,000. That's a pivot. The other pivot is, everybody's on Hooker Tillman at X cost, but you could also go Jabari Small, right? Yeah. And I think I don't know where I heard it or mentioned it or whatever, but there is the idea that I think it was Andrew Katz that said there is the idea that maybe X team is notorious for just passing it left and right, have a high total and a good matchup. What about going the running back? That's pretty good. There's no reason to be surprised that he's going to run it. And I think that's a Jabari Small thing. And by the way, Jabari Small, worst case scenario, I'll be shocked if he doesn't go for 80 and a touchdown. Shocked.
So, Brandon, what's the price on Jabari Small?
I think he just
sorry, I muted myself on accident.
He's too quick.
Let me look it up. You guys keep talking. I'll look it up.
I've been on Small all off season. He's the RB1. They're gonna try to mix it up, but they have a lot of random backups. There's no one proven in behind him, and so I really like Jabari Small. he's gonna give up some carries. He's not gonna be a 45 to 55% carry like a Mo. Dude, Mo Ibrahim's gonna be like a 65% carry. But like, so I do like small. I did bet over, I think, on PrizePicks and on Underdog for his rushing yards, because in that matchup,
yeah,
I mean, he could do that on 10, 12 carries. Like, that's a great matchup.
So now I know why I didn't pick small. He's 9,000. That was a little high. Yeah.
And so in comparison to Richardson, that's tough.
Yeah, but I would maybe still over Ibrahim now that I think about it. I might save the money.
You do save a lot of money on,
and then I can spend up on the second RB, take Steele out, and then maybe go like, let's see who else is down here. Potts, Strader. There's still Abaconda. I don't know how you guys feel about Pitt in their run game, but he's the only RB without an or. So you got Izzy there. I would take Kevon Lee. There's Singleton down at 6,500. That would be a nice sneaky play there. It just kind of depends on your bread and butter and what you prefer, but 9,000 is good for small.
Now, Cabe knows this. When Heupel was at UCF, there was always sneaky value in Heupel's running backs, and they were always very cheap, right? And you could, if you hit the nuggets on the guy for UCF, you would end up with like 2 touchdowns and 70 yards rushing, and he'd be like 3,600, some crazy value. So Heupel will get. Now the thing is, he rotated more at UCF. Small looks like by far the best running back at Tennessee. I don't think they have a stable of equal running backs. When he was at UCF, they were all good.
All kind of the same guy, you know, like all very good and barely highly recruited.
And if one was injured, you were like, all right, it's only going to be 2 guys now.
Yeah.
So if Small's the guy, they do produce stats out of the running back position in Heupel's system.
I would say that just for, in general, the Heupel system. Like,
yes.
I remember UCF, one or two of my best days in DFS history is just like being around for 330 and Jalen Robinson was out and maybe I hit Alec Holler or whatever, one of those random receivers that all of a sudden was 4,100 and is now really a receiver 1 or 2. Like, I think there's a lot of value in understanding what like the Nates and the Jareds from C2C talk about, which is the systems, right? Like a Heupel system is going to really amplify just scoring and just production and limit like the fact that you don't have to necessarily be that great. You know, like first of all these guys have to be a certain level of good, right?
Oh,
like, they're playing real college football. Like 100% have to be certain level of good. But like a guy like Heupel is like, I'm taking you from here to here.
Yes.
And so that's a lot of just, I would say like just in general for DFS strategy and skill sets is just like being around. Like it's tough, right? Like we all have lives on Saturdays.
Oh yeah.
So I just wait till my wife is working on a Saturday and then I really hit it hard, you know, like so I don't have to worry about it. But you could get a lot of value out of being around at 2:30 and this guy is in a boot on the sidelines and a reporter says it and all of a sudden you have an ability to like jump an edge on 15% of people. And Heupel was a huge example of that in years past.
Absolutely. So that was mainly all the Thursday slate. Let's talk about Saturday real quick, and then we'll kind of get out of here. We'll give some favorite plays for Saturday on the DK slate. I don't know if you guys had a chance to take a look.
No.
My favorite, and I know you guys are both Michigan guys, what is your thoughts on Corum and Edwards together in a Saturday stack? Talk to me.
I don't think it's a bad strategy because I can't tell you for sure who's going to be the better one. I would ask this, what's the salary? I'm going to pop it open right now.
Laub, it's insane. Corum is 7,300 and Donovan Edwards is 5,000.
Super valuable.
Oh, that
on DraftKings, PPR.
Yep.
You know what? I'm going Edwards. Like not even close. The salary savings and the K just said it. The PP now Corum's a good receiver, much better than people I think give him credit for. But Donovan Edwards should get the 4 to 5 receptions, I think, out of that backfield. So I'll take Edwards at the significant, from what you're saying, salary savings.
Yeah, both of them. Both
Yeah,
of them are
that's-
what, 13K total? That's not
Yeah.
bad at all.
No.
So to talk about the two, Edwards, he was a 10 reception in a game guy last year.
Yes.
As a true freshman, right? With Cade McNamara at quarterback. They have said that Harbaugh has said that Cade McNamara will be the quarterback game one, which I think, that's not that surprising. And then JJ McCarthy's game two, but that matters because Cade McNamara is not a threat around the goal line. You just took away a vulture. JJ McCarthy, 100% a vulture. So prime matchup, Edwards at 5,000 is insanely good. I love Corum. I mean, you look back, and I wrote the article today for the Saturday main slate for C2C, and they crushed Northern Illinois in Western Michigan, and both of them were insanely good. I didn't even look at the Washington game because I know all they did was run it. And I'm like, okay, let me avoid that one. Let's just talk about these other two that could be potentially different. I mean, Corum has scored 6-7 touchdowns this first 3 games. Hassan Haskins last year scored 4 or 5 touchdowns. Both these guys are very good at very cheap prices. I would consider them in cash, tournament, and I would consider them chalk that's not worth risking. I would not divert away from it just to do it because I think they're that good of options. I don't see a world where one of them or both of them suck.
No
right? What world does Michigan win by 30 and they don't hit 18 to 20 points?
No, and Kay, we were talking about offensive lines. I started with my rant. Michigan's offensive line,
insanely good.
Colorado State, they might throw the ball 12 times. I mean, I just don't see how Colorado, by the third quarter, their defensive linemen are going to be sucking wind, and Michigan has a top 3 offensive line in the nation with Outland Trophy potential offensive linemen. This is going to be bad for Colorado State by the third quarter. So they're going to run the ball. I agree with Chris totally.
Yeah, Colorado State's got some great receivers. I just don't know if we're going to be able to see them all game because Michigan's going to run it down their throat, and they're not going to be able to stop them. I mean, look at your O-line and look at the two. I just think it's when I looked at both Michigan running backs, I was like, this is the safest pairing of running back. I literally can just leave running back alone and just go have fun at wide receiver and quarterback in stacks.
So here's the problem with it is when I evaluated it, looked at it, running back is insanely deep. Receiver is insanely thin.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm looking and running projections. I'm running the optimizer. I'm there's a Colorado State receiver that pops for me, Torrey Horton, which is scary because who wants to roster a receiver against a Michigan defensive back, right?
It's scary.
But running backs are insanely good. Zach Evans, Zach Charbonnet is really good. Honestly, the top play plus value might be Christopher Brooks from BYU.
I love Christopher Brooks this week, dude.
BYU running backs are amazing, yeah.
I mean, 6,100. There's rumors that Romney, which it seems like there's 2 injuries, right? There's Puka Nacua and there's Gunnar Romney. Romney seems very, very, very much closer to out than Puka. And if both of them are out, what is BYU going to do?
Run.
Hand the ball to Brooks.
They're going to hand the ball off, right? So Brooks, regardless, is great. That's a good matchup for him against USF. Just close enough or just good enough to keep it close. So, yeah, I mean, I think what's really interesting, and I think, Brandon, it's time for you to shine here, is Murray and Hampton, 3,000. App State's a tough matchup. Yeah, he's 3,000 in this matchup against App State. That's real low. But App State's got a million 5th and 6th year guys. So what do you think?
I respect the heck out of App State. I do not take them lightly. Just because they play in a G5 doesn't mean that they're capable. And they have a very much offense that's very close to what you're seeing now with Pettaway and Hampton and Noel and Cameron Peoples. So they're going to try to run attack. we saw Carolina's defense. I'm a bit of a sycophant, so I'm a bit of a sadist. So I'm looking at Chase Bryce, who's a 6-year senior. He's been at Clemson and Duke, so he knows Carolina very well already. And then he's, we have what is his name, Wells, which I think is the top wide receiver at Appalachian State. I'm looking at possibly playing them against a very weakened now without Tony Grimes at Carolina. So do I want to play my own team? No, not really. But when it comes to tournament play, no one's really going to stack App State. And who's to say you don't stack Noel? I think Noel's the higher price, so you might move Peoples, but Hampton's good. I think Hampton is a man amongst boys. He played in high school. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year at North Carolina, and there's a reason for that because he literally just mowed everyone down. But App State's got a pretty decent defense. I believe that they're ranked on Fantrax. I think they're like 35th, 36th, or something like that.
App State, they're at home, right?
Yeah, they're in Boone this week. Yeah.
They play well at home on defense, and I think they're going to run the ball against UNC.
Yeah, it's going to be run versus run. And really, I think Hampton's good play. I think people will fade him because it might be App State. I mean, it depends on if you look at that green or red number. I don't. I just look at, opportunity, right? For me, I think it's a decent play. For me, probably my favorite little pivot. And, of course, I'll tout, another freshman, but Matthew Golden at Houston. A lot of people are going to be on Nathaniel Dell. But if you look at Golden is an absolute beast of a man. And he's playing out of the X in Houston in that system. 4,900. That is, yeah. So he's one of my favorite little sneaky plays. I would probably take him over Hampton this week, if I'm being very honest.
I researched that game because it's one of the top over-unders on the Saturday slate. Houston and UTSA is going to be able to score some points. I don't think,
such a good matchup.
It should be a shootout. And I'll tell you who I just looked quickly. At least I don't feel so bad. DraftKings has Jackson Dart at 8,300 and Altmaier at 6,700 for Mississippi.
Are we getting both, or is Altmaier actually playing the whole game? Do we know?
He might come out, but he's going to at least start in the points. Yeah. I mean, that's cheap for a starting quarterback. I don't know. I mean, that's wildly. You're getting a Lane Kiffin quarterback
has that come out is he come out as the starter?
That's what I thought. I was 90% sure.
I thought it was or.
I think it was the or. Yeah. So there's.
But I think it's worth mentioning. I think it's worth well, of course, I think it's worth mentioning. I wrote in my article. I think Altmaier's an awesome option at that price.
Yes.
But if it's Dart, I'm probably staying away.
Oh, I agree. I'm not paying 8,300 for Dart.
100%. Yeah.
Not if he's not going to play all game. No way.
Like 6,700 or whatever it is for an Ole Miss Lane Kiffin quarterback, like Laub said, is like insanely good. Give me that all day. You get a Mitchell Trigg that's like 4,600. That's awesome. I don't think Jalen Robinson's that bad, or Mingo or whoever at receiver is not that bad in terms of pricing. So I'm totally down with that. Can I give you guys the weirdest, sketchiest, you might kick me off the show type stack here before we go?
I don't.
No,
never, is it Boston College? Is it BC and your boy Jerkovich? No.
No, I'm thinking game stack, and that's how I would do it.
Legitimate game stack.
No. It's a 5-person game stack. You ready for this?
Let's hear it. Yeah.
All right. So I'm so nervous right now.
That's all right.
Dylan Gabriel, Marvin Mims, incredible options, right?
Sure.
I think you could have a lot of value out of going Hardison at 4,600, and then one of Tyron Smith, Ronaldo Flores, or both. The only reason why I would say maybe not both is because there's all like the UTEP side is so cheap that like who else would you use, right? So I would be down with the game stack if you're building multiple lineups. 4, 5+ lineups, you'd be, in my opinion, would be crazy not to consider a UTEP Oklahoma, game stack. I think in years past, Oklahoma has given up plenty of points to random teams.
Yes.
We've seen them come close to losing to the UTEPs of the world. So I would that's not my favorite game stack. I think Houston UTSA, like Laub said, it's my favorite game stack.
I like
with Franklin and Harris. Oh my God.
Yeah, you get Frank Harris, super upside, 50-point guy with Franklin, and then you get Toon and then Dell. And Houston, you just love the 1-to-1, the guys that just will pound the same like throw to the same guy nonstop, and that's all you're going to get with Tune and Dell. And I love Golden. I think Golden would be a great sneaky option if you think game stack. He's like 4,900 or something.
I'm just looking
great.
at him now. 4,900.
That's awesome price. Yeah.
At the X in what's
Houston.
The coach? Why can't I remember his
Holgerson.
Yeah.
That's that might be the cheapest we see Matthew Golden all year.
Oh yeah, he's gonna blow up on the scene. Him and Burton are gonna be so high priced next week because of what they're gonna do. It's ridiculous.
So talent's there, man, and the offense is there with Holgerson. So I think those are some fun game stacks. And I think especially if you're building 10+, like throw a little UTEP Oklahoma in there. Why not?
I like Smith still this week. Yeah, Tyron Prude's-Worth. Is he still banged up, or is he looking like he's playing?
I think they're all playing. I think they're all good to go. Yeah.
That's good to go. All right. Laub, you got anybody else before we wrap it up, buddy?
Well, the only game, it's funny. I was doing research on this game, and I would love to stack it. But then I did my research on North Carolina State's defense, and I don't think ESCU can score very many.
You're thinking Aylers,
weren't you? Like it might be an interesting, but I don't know if the Pirates are even going to be able to put up 3 touchdowns against the Wolfpack's defense. I mean, I like the Wolfpack to score big time against East Carolina, but I don't think East Carolina can put points on the board. And Mitchell's my biggest conundrum right now. I have so many shares in my season long. Like, is this just a bad game against the Wolfpack? Do they just take them out of the game? Their linebackers are too good, I think, for East Carolina.
This is probably the best NC State team I've seen in over a decade.
Their defense,
and I'm a Carolina guy.
Players.
So.
Yeah,
they got players.
Yeah, tons of wide receivers, good defense, tight end that can run running back or tight end. Kind of the Samuels thing is kind of back, I think, with what's his name? Oh God, I can't forget his name. It's not Porter Rooks.
It's Trent Penix, right?
Penix, yeah, that's Penix, yeah, and he's got a dual eligibility on FanDuel or for FanTrack. Sorry, I keep getting the F's mixed up, but definitely a great team. I hear what you're saying, though. ECU, I will say they might play them a little close to the start because it is an in-state rivalry game. They know each other well. They're within like an hour of each other. So it just depends on how much you believe in Aylers and then how much you believe in that run game. I don't think we see Kamaro Edmonds or Harris as much. I think Mitchell's going to kind of run away with his backfield, but I don't know if this is the game to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the Wolfpack are nasty on. I think this is a bad game to open up for East Carolina.
I think ECU turns into an offense that we love stacking or like getting a lot of involvement with. I'm the same thing with Mitchell. I think Aylers with his experience, you're going to see some huge upside games. I just don't know what receiver, and I think there's some suspension
I heard
stuff.
Johnson's back, so I hear he's doing okay. He's in good graces, so we'll see.
So apparently CJ Johnson's back, but I don't know.
There's a new Johnson in town.
Josiah Hatsfield.
Yeah, Isaiah Hatsfield, and then Jalen Johnson, who came in from Georgia.
I've heard randomly, I have no ability to validate it, that Hatfield's suspended for 2 games.
Uh-oh.
Really?
Not that it would have mattered. Like,
did he party too hard?
He probably, ECU parties on Tuesdays. That's what I heard when I was at Virginia Tech.
They party all week.
I replayed them one year. I was in the stands, and this one girl was just done. She was gone. And her thing was, we party on Tuesdays. And I was like, okay, cool. But you're asleep at 1 p.m. on a Saturday. So what's it matter?
They start on Mondays. I can confirm. G Vegas is a crazy college town for sure. You got some, you're onto something there. But there's no telling what wide receiver. But I think as the season progresses, we're going to probably see a decent stack, and we're going to see at least 2 or 3 emerge that we can probably do that as well. All right, guys. We got anything else?
That was great.
All right, guys.
Thanks for hopping on, Laub, man. That was awesome. Yeah. One of the OGs, man. Since Nam.
Yeah, I was telling Chris, you're the first DFS one for CFB and the first CFF article that I ever read. So I was like, here I am, Mr. Laub City himself. The OG.
Thank you, gentlemen.
What an OG.
I had a blast tonight, and you sparked me to do my early research. So I'm like, I'm ahead of the game. I usually start like Wednesday, but I said, I got to be ready for the Tuesday show here. So, but I loved it. So I already have a pretty decent feel about. Obviously, we got a longer week to go, but
yeah.
I had a blast tonight. It was awesome.
Well, when you're rich, don't forget about us. Okay?
Yeah. When you're on ESPN, finally, just just don't forget about us guys at C2C.
Never will, my friend.
But once again, we want to thank John for coming on. Of course, my other co-host Chris, Ethan, buddy, we miss you. We hope that you're healthy, and we see you next week. Want to keep in mind that we are going to move our lines. We call it the Draw the Line segment. I think we're going to kind of push that over. You saw a podcast on the C2C feed from our friend Alfred Fernandez. I think he's going to kind of cover most of the lines. I want you guys to go check it out because he covers the whole slate. And, of course, Chris Moxley at Chris Moxley 19. A man, the myth, and the legend. That man knows lines, and he stays on top of it and runs a spreadsheet weekly. And he also does that on the morning shows. So we're going to kind of push that towards those guys for you guys to check that out. So moving forward, they're going to be your go-tos if you're looking to put some line bets on and things like that in particular, where we're going to focus on the DFS and PrizePicks sides of things as well. Another straight tip, just like John learned here tonight, if you play early on PrizePicks, you can get those early props and hammer on them as fast as possible. So definitely check out when they release Monday or Tuesday. Once again, check out the code C2C if you're going to go and sign up for PrizePicks. Of course, check out the website for all the articles. Like I said, that new tier is up for $29.99, and that is the NIL tier for the DFS and the betting aspect of it. So go check that out if you want to see Chris's, Ethan's articles, Alfred's, Chris. They all have something really great going. Of course, this podcast is here for you to listen to weekly as well. So keep us in mind, and we thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Peace.